Good morning, children. Let us start today the modal verbs. Students, before starting today's lesson, I want you all to look at this picture. This picture is divided into two parts. In the first part, we can see that a man is providing help or giving help to a small plant by helping it to stand with the help of a stick. While in the other part, we can see that the tree itself is giving back that support to the old man, or when that very young man is turning old. So he is giving support to that old man by giving a stick in return, so that that old person can stand with somewhat firmness or somewhat steadily. A beautiful message is being revealed by this picture. The message of helping each other, of providing mutual support, mutual help to each other, so that a meaningful end, or that person can live, or any living being can have a meaningful life. So, to live our life, it is necessary that we help each other, we cooperate each other to stand steadily. Here, this very sense of support, this very sense of giving strength to one another is what we will find in our today's lesson. That is, we will see the relationship of the helping verb with the main verb. Without each other, many times a sentence or sentences would not attain its or their complete meaning. So it is very much necessary to know how verbs help each other. Better to say, helping verb or auxiliary verb help the main verb to give proper meaning to a sentence. How helping verb provides support to the main verb. In fact, how they are used at the same time to make a sentence complete. Verbs mainly are of two kinds: main verbs and auxiliary verbs. Look at the definition of main verbs. The main verbs are usually the action verbs that come after the helping verbs. A main verb may be a linking or action verb. So basically, doing words are recognized as verbs, as you know, and they take place, the position of main verbs, when they produce meaning, a specific meaning of their own. In fact, they are able to stand alone and help the whole sentence or different kinds of sentences to render specific meanings of their own. A main verb may be a linking or action verb. So, it can link the other words in a sentence to provide a particular meaning, or it shows an action, an activity, any kind of movement done by an individual to render complete meaning to a sentence. Let us see the examples. She looks happy, where looks is the main verb. Why looks? Because she is in third person singular number, or the subject she is basically third form and it is singular in number. So is added with the main verb look as the subject. I repeat, the subject is in third person singular number. She looks happy, where looks is the main verb. Next, number 2. The police are looking for the suspect. Students, Over here, suspect means the criminal. So, the police, or basically the police force, they are searching, they are looking for a particular criminal. So, looking over here is acting as the main verb. So, this word looking provides meaning to the whole sentence. Let's look at some more main verbs: walk, hang, stand, pull, throw, push, jump, hold, sleep, sit, swim, paint, and climb. In this picture, teach, think, spell, give, study, read, cut, experiment, observe, listen, play, sing, say, draw, count, calculate, open, close, paint, show, explain, ask, and so on. Next, look at the meaning of an auxiliary or auxiliaries. Auxiliaries are verbs that are used with other verbs to make meaningful sentences. They are also called helping verbs. Here are some examples: be, will, do, may, can, has, have, etc. Students, these verbs basically have the meaning of their existence when they are used with the main verbs. They support main verbs in different kinds of sentences to render specific meanings of those sentences. So they are known as helping verbs. Let us look at the examples of auxiliary verbs. Number 1, am. Number 2, is. Number 3, are. Number 4, have. Number 5, has. Number 6, do. Number 7, does. Number 8, did. Number 9, was. Number 10, were. Number 11, will. Number 12, can. Number 13, could. Number 14, must. Number 15, should. Number 16, would. And so on. Examples: I'm running because Parker's lobster is chasing me. Students over here, am, easy, helping verb, and running, easy, main verb. So am is basically supporting the word running. Next sentence. I shall go to the store to buy some melons. Where helping verb is shall and main verb is go. So here shall is basically helping the main verb go. Look at the differences between main verb and auxiliary verb. Number 1, under main verb, it is known as the principal verb. Look under the auxiliary verb, it is known as the helping verb. So where it acts means the main verb acts as the principal verb, there auxiliary verb acts as the helping verb. So the role of main verb is very important, and it's almost in the position of utmost importance. So it has been called as principal verb. Whereas in case of auxiliary verb, it is helping verb since its basic work is to provide help to the main verb. Now, why main verb is known as the principal verb? We will know this in the third point. But before that, look at the point number 2. It acts independently. So main verb acts independently as it gives its own meaning, or it can stand alone. So it acts basically independently. In case of the auxiliary verb, it cannot act independently since its work is to support the main verb in a sentence. So it cannot stand on its own in a sentence. It has to be applied with the main verb only. Number 3, under main verb, it bears its own complete meaning. So, I've already told you that it can stand on its own. It can be sufficient in a sentence as it has the capability to bear its own complete meaning. Next, auxiliary verb. It supports main verb without which it is incomplete. So, the auxiliary verb basically stands when it has its own work of helping the main verb in a sentence. So, unlike main verb, it cannot bear its own meaning. It cannot provide help to a sentence alone without the help or without the existence of the main verb. Auxiliary verbs are basically of two kinds: primary auxiliary verbs and modal auxiliary verbs. Look at the definition of the modal auxiliary verbs or verb, as we are not concerned over here with the primary auxiliary verbs. Modal verbs are auxiliary verbs, also called helping verbs, like can, will, could, shall, must, would, might, should, have to, so on and so forth. Modal verb or verbs add meaning or meanings to the main verb or verbs in a sentence or sentences by expressing possibility, ability, permission, obligation, and many other emotional aspects. So, students, basically, these verbs express different kinds of human nature or their specific ability, capability, or any other emotional states. Or basic conditions of their speech. Look at the words of modals once again: shall, must, could, might, will, ought to, may, would, should, can. These are basically helping verbs or auxiliary verbs, as I have told you. They provide support to the main verbs in different kinds of sentences to give particular directions to the meanings of those sentences. Let's look at the features of modals. Number 1, they are never used alone. Number 2, they don't agree with person and number of the subject or subjects. Suppose a word of modal or a modal verb will not change if the person is in first person or second or third. And similarly, if it is in singular or plural form. Let us see what we have discussed in the point number 2. Suppose first person and we are taking the modal verb must. So let us see whether it is going to change with the change of person and number. First, I must do it in singular form or when the subject is in singular form. Next, when the subject is in plural form, we, first person, we must do it. Must is not getting changed. Next, second person, singular form of subject. You must do it. So same over here. Next, plural form. Students, suppose you are addressing to a group of people, then also you have to address them with the word you only over there. So here you stands for a group of people or many people together. It can be also applied for a few people and so on. But somehow it is plural in number. You must do it. So here, must is again remaining same. Next, third person, singular form. He must do it. So the subject is in singular form, he. Okay? Here, must is remaining same. Next, they must do it in the plural form of subject, or when we are taking they as the plural form of subject. Must is again remaining unchanged, or it is not getting changed. So, a modal verb will not change in any circumstances. Number 3, they do not have forms of infinitive, present participle, or past participle. So, they are not applied in the participle form, in any participle form, or to infinitive. Suppose to plus base form of the verb, to go, to reach, and many more. Number 4, always negative words are not formed immediately or by immediately putting not after the specific words of modals, but sometimes not is put between the consecutive words of modals too. For example, ought not to, where not is in between the respective words ought and to, unlike cannot, where not is after can and almost used as a same word, or we say cannot as a single word, cannot. Or any other modal verbs, suppose might not, where not is after the modal might. Next, number 5, questions are formed by putting modals before the subjects. For example, would you please lend me your books? Where would is the modal. Next, number B, can we go there? Where can is the modal verb. Number 6, modals are used in question tags as number A, she can't be right, can she? Number B, You won't do that, will you? So she can't be right, can she? So here basically can she can is the modal verb. And in the second question, will you will is the modal verb where they are basically used, or in these sentences they are basically used as question tags. Next, number 7. Only 4 modals: can, shall, will, and may have their past forms: could, should, would, and might. Sometimes to is used after some words like dear, used, and have in number 8. So in number 8 we have this very point that sometimes to is also used after some words like dear, used, and have. Suppose dare to, used to, have to. In case of have, in its past form, suppose had to, or when the subject is in the present form, having singular number, and will be in third person. So, when the tense will be present, subject will be in third person singular number, then has to can be also used. Let's see which modal verb is expressing what. Can expresses ability, doubt, astonishment, permission, polite request. Next, may expresses permission, if not prohibition, supposition with doubt. So, students, all of you, take permission in your life for doing this or that. So, you know the meaning of the permission very well. If not prohibition means to say no or to prohibit something, to let not happen something, to put obstacle, supposition with doubt. Students, if you are supposing something, if you are guessing something, must be you are not totally sure of that or what is going to be its result. So, supposition, you are supposing something and you are having doubt. Next one, must It expresses obligation, firm necessity, logical conclusion, probability. Students, probability. When anything is probable or it will likely to take place. Next one, shall. Intention, supposition. Next one, will. It expresses desire, wish, will, confidence, something in the future. Ought to, which expresses moral duty, insistent advice, strict recommendation, need, basically necessity. Students, if need not is given, then it will do the opposite of revealing the necessity. Okay? Next one. Means B2, which expresses obligation arising out of arrangement or agreement. So, obligation, what you are to do, and you don't have any other option for that. So, what you have to do. Next one, have to. Unwillingness, forced circumstances. So, basically, what you are not willing to do, so you have to do that task. So, have to is used there. Forced circumstances. Definitely, if you don't have the desire to do that task, you are forced to do that. Next, would, which expresses wish in the bracket with to like, bracket close. Polite request, a habit of the past. Next, should. Necessity, advice, blame, recommendation, reproach, regret. Students, necessity. Definitely, when the situation demands or when you have extreme need of it. Advice, when you give any kind of good or bad advice to someone, okay, to help him or her, suppose, or likely the opposite. Next, blame, when you put a certain blame on someone or when you put any allegation, when you say against of that person. So that is blaming. Recommendation. Now, recommendation is what any employer or anyone with power likely or may do sometimes. He or she gives recommendation for any person or for anyone who carries good work. Reproach. Now, this is a scolding that you often have from your parents, or you are sometimes being scolded to stop doing something. Next, regret. When you feel extremely bad about something, when you feel that you should apologize, you do something wrong and you regret, means you feel somewhat bad and you just want to do somewhat the opposite of that, or you feel that your work was not good. When you realize, when you recognize. Next, used to. Repeated action in the past. So something which had repeatedly been performed in the past. So that kind of activity or that sort of action which had been carried out in the past time, for that used to is used. Example, see the sentences with the word have to, has to, mustn't, doesn't have to, don't have to. You have to do it. They have to learn. So basically, it is revealing necessity. So in the first picture, you can see that it's about necessity. It is necessary. She has to see it. Joe has to go there. Next one. It reveals prohibition. Mustn't. You mustn't do it. She mustn't watch this. They mustn't see it. We mustn't go there. Next. Joe doesn't have to do it. She doesn't have to learn. They don't have to say it. I don't have to go there. And doesn't have to or don't have to is not for what is necessary. Means what is not necessary, okay, is revealed by this two things. See the usage of may. Use may and might to speculate about the past. Why isn't John here yet? You can easily see that it is said by the man present over here. Now, the lady says, I don't know. He may have missed the train. So, something which had happened or which have already taken place. So, that activity, okay, or which has taken place, okay. So, that activity or activities are being conveyed by the use of may or might. Next, use could to talk about ability in the past. I could have been a professional dancer, but I broke my leg when I was 17. So I could have been something, okay? But it hadn't happened, suppose. So I could. Next, Rob must have eaten my cake. Past modal verbs. So, Rob must have done something. Okay. Must have eaten what? My cake. Use must to talk about what is believed to be certain in the past. The bicycle has disappeared. It must have been stolen. So, it must have been stolen. Students, these are basically about recent past. Use would to talk about past possibilities and consequences. If I had passed my exams, I would have become a doctor. If I had passed my exams, I would have become a doctor. So, someone would have become something if he would have passed his exams. Here, basically, I'm telling this. Here, I, the very thing, the very indication of I has been given. So, I had passed my exams. I would have then. If I had passed my exams, I would have become a doctor. Negative would plus not plus have plus past participle. He would not have crashed the car if he hadn't drunk so much. Once again, he wouldn't have crashed the car if he hadn't drunk so much. Questions. Do you think you plus may or might plus have plus past participle? Do you think you may have lost your keys? So it's a question. Use should to talk about past mistakes, recommend or criticize strongly. You should have been here 2 hours ago. Sorry, there was traffic. Next, negative. Could plus not plus have plus past participle. Wow, 100% on your exam. You could not have done any better. Well done. So, wow, 100% on your exam. So, you have got 100 percentage of marks. Okay? You could not have done any better. Okay? So, if someone gets 100%, then definitely he had performed very well in his examination. So, he had performed very well and he could not have done any better than that. Will. See the example. I will give you a call on Monday. Next, I will take these books with me. First one is promise. I will give you a call on Monday. So that is basically a promise. Next one. I will take these books with me is an instant decision. Next one. We will book your tickets if you like. That is an offer. Next one. We will see an increase in salaries next year, which is certain prediction. Next modal. Would. Would you mind if I opened the window? This is definitely asking for permission. Next one. Would you make me a coffee? A request. Suppose you are telling to your friend, would you make me a coffee? Next. Would you be available at 6 p.m. tonight? So basically, this is for making arrangement or arrangements. Next one. Would you like to go out sometime? This is an invitation. So, would you like to go out sometime? Next, would you prefer the window seat or the aisle? Preferences or preference. So, what would you prefer to have? Next modal. Shall. Shall I get the phone? Or will you? Asking what to do. Next one. Shall I call a cab? So, shall I call a taxi? It's an offer. Next one. Shall we see 9 p.m. at Emmy's then? It's a suggestion. So, shall we say 9 p.m. at Emmy's then? Means, shall we meet or shall we say that we are going to meet at 9 p.m.? Where? Emmy's. Means a restaurant, suppose, or a coffee house. Next. Should. You should see a doctor. You don't look well. It's an advice. We should get a specialist. Recommending action. So it's about recommendation. It's about stating or commanding about an action. Suggesting. Next, salaries should go up next year. It's an uncertain prediction. So it's a prediction, although uncertain, or although with having uncertainty. Next, ought to. You ought to go to the dentist before you leave. It's an advice. So you ought to do something. Ought to is almost parallel to the word must, or it is almost equal to its relevance, its usage, or what we use for is almost equal. So, what for must is used? Almost for that much necessity or that much obligation, ought to is used. Next word, must. I must leave now to catch my train. It's an obligation or necessity. So I must leave now to catch my train. Suppose the time for the arrival of my train is coming near and I should leave. I must leave. So I must leave over here. Next, you mustn't ask too many questions. So it's prohibition. So it's completely saying no, suppose, to something. You mustn't ask too many questions. So, anyone, suppose one of your elders is quite annoyed with your frequent questions and he or she is telling you this. You mustn't ask too many questions. Thank you, students.